It tells me we're on air. I hope we're on air. And just remember this, kids, in the marmalade forest between the make-believe trees in a cottage cheese cottage. And that goes out to Jamie Bignell and the RC Model Society at Bath University. And I hope that they probably know what that means. We've got another student with us this evening, Tom Stanton. He's at the University of Hertfordshire at Hatfield, and hopefully all students should know what that means. And Loretta Alcali, our lawyer friend, formerly of the FAA, and now with Vaughan College of Aeronautics and Technology, which I think is in New York. Is it in New York, Loretta?
It is. It's like right next to LaGuardia Airport.
Okay, that's handy for transport. Now, Tom, you have created a 3D printed radio-controlled aircraft, something which I said years ago, it'll never happen, it'll never work, it'll never fly, and some lovely ones have come out, and you've made a great flying wing, and you've shared a video, and in that video you've shared the files for creating it, and maybe you can run this old man through exactly how it works and why it's a good thing.
Yeah, so I watched the flight test video a while ago on the 3D printed P-38, and I just kind of wondered how they 3D printed all the structures and everything. I'm not sure if you're familiar with how 3D printed slices work, but I've got a video on how I basically designed it, and it's quite complicated to explain about diagrams. I was just experimenting. That's the video showing up now. Experimenting with how to get the lightest construction possible with a single layer, like skin thickness on the wings, with an internal structure still. And, that's what I've produced. And
it's not the first fantastic aircraft that you've made. I was also very impressed. You made, using a KK2 controller, you made a VTOL, which is very much like the V-22 Osprey, with rotating engines and hovering about and doing good stuff like that. So plainly, you're a bit of a fundy, as we say in Africa, with aircraft design. And is that what you're studying now? Is that what you're into now?
I'm actually studying aerospace engineering, and actually I'll give you a little hint of what my next video will be about.
Oh, okay. Yes, please. Bring it.
For my final year project, I've explained it in some previous videos. I'm building another VTOL, and I haven't finished editing the video yet, but got it right here.
Okay.
It's basically a version 3 of my previous one, which is a version 2, the grey V22 one, and it's got more 3D printed parts. So you can see that it's got a 3D printed tilt mechanism, and it utilizes like a T-Rex 450 feathering shaft from a helicopter, a model helicopter.
That's the shaft at the back, is it?
No, sorry. There's a shaft that it pivots around here.
Right. Okay. And there's a 3D printed cogs that I'm seeing there, I think.
Yeah. So there's a shaft that goes through here into the spar.
And is that a servo running into those cogs to turn that, or is it a motor?
There's a servo inside here, inside the block here.
So what's the advantage then of this version 3 of that Osprey? And is it still using it? Is it still a KK controller board?
Yes, it's still got a KK2 controller board. The main advantage to this is I basically just put updated electronics in it. Like I've got DYS 30 amp speed controllers which can run BL Heli, and also 0.1 second servos in it, so just quicker response time really.
And then when you're doing the transitioning with that in the KK, what is the software in the KK controller? There is a particular firmware, isn't there?
Yeah, it's Open Aero VTOL.
That's it.
It's designed by a guy on RC Groups.
And is that switch based, the transition, or is it based on pushing the stick forward as it speeds up, it'll transition, or do you have to flick a switch?
You have to set up an aux channel. You pretty much set it up like a flat control channel. I've got on a 3-position switch, so I can fly at half transition speed or full forward flight, and vice versa.
Okay, and well, that's we've wandered off back to the 3D printing. Let's go back to that 3D. No. It's all cool. It's all good. It's all good. We're completely random here. Let's go back to the 3D printed airframe. I thought in the past it was always going to be way too heavy. I couldn't see it ever beating foam or being a EPP foam. You can fly; it will bounce off a tree. So how are you finding it in real life? Is it strong? Is it impact resistant? Or is it like flying a mirror or a piece of glass? Does it shatter at the slightest?
Well, what's interesting, which I brought up in my previous video, is that when you get a 3D printer and you look at everything on the internet, people tell you PLA is fragile, ABS is stronger. Pretty much, it's always in that kind of that way. But I've never seemed to be able to get the right layer strength with ABS. Sorry, I always get stronger layer strength with PLA than with ABS. And I think I showed the wings printed vertically. And also in terms of strength wise, I printed it really hot and really slow, so it's pretty much one solid piece rather than sometimes you have 3D printed parts, they break along the layer.
Okay, so I don't have a 3D printer, and I've got a friend of mine who I hope is staying up all night and printing one of your wings right now. And if he isn't staying up all night, I'm very disappointed with him, and he's got to try harder. Explain the heat. So you make the plastic hotter, and that does.
It seals the layers together properly. So the layer, when it makes a part, it just keeps continuously making layers, and the idea is that it when it goes over the previous layer, that layer is still hot, so that it bonds as strong as possible.
Sorry, Tom. Sorry, you're at university studying aeronautics. Is this what you're all about there as students? Are you all flying model airplanes, and are you all getting very excited about 3D printing?
It's funny because probably 90% of the students on my course have no idea how a printer works. They, in fact, a lot of them don't even know that we have 3D printers at the university.
Are you using the university 3D printers?
No, I've got my own.
Oh.
Instead of buying a PlayStation, I bought one. So.
Oh, did you? Oh, you've done your parents proud. Good man. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And what sort of printer do you have?
It's called a Mini Cossel Delta 3D printer.
Now, Delta is one of the ones where the head's sort of suspended from a frame, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's got three vertical beams basically, and then three poles going down to a central nozzle. And
so let's run back to the strength thing. So you're running it hot, so it binds it together better, and that's one of the issues. So okay, that's great. You say it's strong. How's that been in landings and takeoffs and things like that? How's it been in the real world, hitting things?
I should probably crash test it properly. With my first video, the problem is with my design is the glue strengths or the weaker, so they were the weakest points. So I never actually got to fully crash test the plastic. The glue joints would break before the plastic broke.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't actually broken a 3D printed section of the wing yet. Maybe I should fly into a tree or something at some point.
And then, so are the joints between each part 90 degrees, or do they jigsaw into each other?
On the latest plane design, there's a slight sleeve on it that recesses about 0.5 of a millimeter, so that they slide inside each other. That's the best glue joint, really. Okay.
Now, I was a big skeptic of this, and now I'm fast, and I also saw those fantastic designs on flight test, and it's immediately got me thinking that we might not be far away from a time where as an end user, we have some parameters of what we'd like an airframe to do, and aeronautics is known, engineering is known, so it's something that software could sort out. So you could say, I want to lift a 1 kilo camera for 1 hour, and I've got this motor. Tell me how I can do it. Please go, you know, just go away and print me the thing to do this task. Do you think that's to use the correct term in this environment, a flight of fancy, or is that something you could see coming?
Yeah, I definitely think that's the most interesting thing about a 3D printed plane is it's obviously not going to be as light as a balsa wood plane with film or even a foam wing, but you can design the aerofoils to be exact. So whatever you design in a CAD software that you put into a CFD software, you know, computational fluid dynamics, you can print that and you'll have the exact shape of the wing. So I guess you can design that for optimal lift and everything like that, which might actually outperform the other manufacturing processes.
Can you measure? So I'm sorry, Tom, I interrupted you again. Can you measure? So when you've printed things, because heat's involved, will are your parts likely to be bang on accurate every time, or do you need a really, really expensive printer to make them bang on accurate? What I'm trying to say is could there be some twist or something that would have come into the wing in the printing process that wouldn't have been in your CFD designs?
Yes, that is possible. I've had a few people contact me that have tried printing the plane that have had the wing warp a little bit. So they've asked me to put extra ribs on the inside of the wing, which would obviously reduce that. But then it adds more weight. I suppose it's all a compromise in the end, really.
So how do you see this design panning out? It's fantastic that you've put it out there. We'll have to say it's not the only one out there, but you know, it's great. You've got a track record. We've seen your VTOL, so your things must be good. So then we must trust your track record. How do you see it running? How do you see it going with design changes and stuff like that?
I really want to just get the most feedback possible from everyone. It didn't take me long to design this wing, and I haven't really made that many revisions since test flying it. So it would be good to get some other people's opinions, and then I can modify it, because flying wings are so complex in terms of the actual aerofoils.
What aerofoil? I was going to glad you said that. What aerofoil did you use?
I haven't used a specific aerofoil.
Oh, okay.
It was a custom aerofoil that I designed in the CAD software.
Oh, okay. I was just going to assume you'd use an MH series or something like that. And did you is there reflex built into it, or do you build that in by putting reflex in the control surfaces?
On this model, I didn't, mainly because I didn't really know how much reflex to put. So I copied the idea of probably 90% of the flying wing manufacturers out there, and just put elevons all the way along, and then use some up trim. So,
yes, that is a fairly industry norm, I think, a fairly established standard of bodge. I would definitely suggest I don't know if you know Robert, flyingwings.co.uk, just up the road in Newport Pagnell. I'd go and bother Rob if I were you. He's a great guy, and he'll probably give you some fantastic advice. So I'm very biased. I like Rob a lot. So yeah, he's a great designer of flying wings. An awful lot of people have copied his designs and ripped them off royally. So you iterate the airframe, and obviously everyone's going to know well, you've said in your video there's going to be an FPV version. How far out is, because people are going to be baying for that, I should imagine.
I'm not sure yet. Probably still a couple of weeks to go. I mean, I'm quite busy at the moment with university, so I sometimes go home on weekends and just film a lot of stuff, and then get my TV and edit it and post it out over a few weeks. It's quite hard to do it whilst studying as well. So.
Yes. Oh no, fair play to you. Yes, of course, fair play. It's very interesting that you are the very much part of the future of aviation in the UK and stuff like that. Hatfield's a historic place to be around. De Havilland were there. Mosquitoes were built just down the road on the other side of the M25 in secret locations, and all those other fantastic historical connotations that go with that area. And it's very exciting that it's still part of all the up and coming developments and things like that. So I suppose we should stop talking about that as the ones on the printer, but I'd love when we try and get one flying here. I can already see one of the issues, and a couple of issues that I have here is that you didn't design it for a place that's 5,000 feet above sea level, and generally the temperature is about 30 degrees C. So I'm very intrigued to see if it copes with that, and if it doesn't, then I'll be twisting your arm to change the design a little bit more for me, and we'll see if we can get it working hot and high as well. So I'm very excited to try that, and to be proved utterly wrong in my predictions of 3D printed aircraft, which I'm completely down with accepting. So hopefully you'll come back and talk to us about that when that happens. So I should dive off to speak to Loretta, who's been patiently just sitting, listening. And Loretta just flies quads. Have you ever flown a fixed wing anything, Loretta?
No, but I'm so impressed with you, Tom. You're just such a wonderful spokesperson for your generation, for aviation. It's very exciting. I'm very proud of you that you put it online for free. That's a very generous thing to do, and I think it's so smart of you to want feedback. That's something that's so important, and a lot of people hog their inventions and hog their ideas, but I really think that that's a really good attribute. Was that your idea to put it for free, or did someone suggest that to you?
No, it was my idea to put it for free. I don't know. I really like the feedback when you hear people saying, like, oh, thanks for all this design and everything. It's quite exciting.
Well, good for you. That's very important.
Thank you.
Hang on, Loretta. I'm going to make a list of millennials that we approve of, because these millennials get a very bad name, right? Tom, right? He's at the top. He's our number one. Tom is our number one currently approved millennial. There are no other millennials on this list. Yeah, I know. No, well done. It is very impressive, and that's kind of a guessing. Oh, here's Mr. Rupert. Oh, he's not adjusting. Oh, he's got the smile. How's it, Mr. Rupert?
How's it going?
Oh, very good. that was a very slick arrival, and it's great. We've been talking to Tom, who's made a 3D printed aircraft, a flying wing, and it's fantastic. It's all good. And I was just going to start talking to Loretta, and we were just going to start talking about things that you should be involved in, and you probably won't have any comment on at all, knowing you. But I was going to kick it off with Orlando. Orlando, not Orlando Bloom, but Orlando Rules. So
okay.
Tell me about Orlando, lawyers.
Well, we'll let Jonathan talk since he's a Florida attorney.
Okay, sure. The City of Orlando passed a ordinance yesterday. I have the meeting on YouTube. It's on my website. You can read the ordinance language there. What's interesting to note is they're requiring you actually to indemnify the city if you're actually going to get a permit. You have to have proof of insurance. So that's fairly burdensome right there. I believe that I've been seeing some people talk about the permit's going to cost about $150 for a lifetime, or something like that. So this is going to start adding up after a while, because you're going to have insurance, you're going to have permitting. Then you're going to have to go talk to Pamela at the front desk, who knows nothing about drones, but she's going to be the lady with the checklist, right? It's going to have to check off to make sure that you are in compliance with the ordinance. And so one wonders why in the world they chose to create their own and not just currently enforce current Florida law. There's actually a Florida state statute. If you look at like 860, Florida State Statute 13 or something like that, that actually prohibits the operation of an aircraft in a careless and reckless manner. So it's like, why in the world did the police department propose this? And furthermore, it would be better to actually have some type of mechanism to arrest people or try to fine, prosecute people for certain types of criminal acts. But what is the purpose of trying to make people go through this permitting process? You know, it just seems like it's a way for the city to actually just obtain some revenue from people. They're more interested in increasing revenue than they are in decreasing any type of risk. That's what it seems to be, because you could chop out portions of the Orlando Ordinance, and a lot of people I don't think would probably mind that, like such as the stalking, don't stalk people with a drone. Yeah, well, we don't really care about stalkers. Go hunt them down and prosecute them all day. We're not advocating for that. But why are you trying to, require us to have insurance and permitting and go through all these headaches? And so what it's going to end up doing is it's going to harm businesses that are going to want to operate there, and further, push those any type of operation that we're wanting to happen there. They're just going to go outside of city limits, and then that's where they're going to do their operations. So it's I don't agree with that at all.
So yeah, you seem to have some fairly strong opinions there. So
it's great. I love it.
But so. Yeah, you've made the very fair and valid point that there's lots of existing rules and regulations that would cover the things that they are proposing. And it seems to me there seems to be quite a bit of fear over there that this is going to be the template for other cities. That's what I'm finding online. Good afternoon to you, Gene. You missed the interesting stuff about flying wings from young Tom there. I might even get him to say it all again, because it is that interesting. It is that interesting. And Gene is Mr. Search and Rescue Flying Wing. And we included reflex in the elevons as the built-in way. But anyway, we'll go back through that later, Gene. We're talking about Orlando now. So is it likely to be the rollout pattern for the rest of the US? Do they need to do it? Does anyone care? Should they do it? I see people, the biggest thing people were moaning about, and they moaned about, I posted the thing about, and the reason I posted about Pine Knob having regulations for skiers was just because of the viz, if you come from the rude connotation of the thing. That's all I did. I thought it was funny on a Saturday. Oh, look, Pine Knob has got regulations. So that's rude in an English context. But people got very upset about that, saying, well, how come Pine Knob aren't allowed to regulate the air above them? And it sounds like Orlando aren't allowed to regulate the air above Orlando. And that's where people are going with it. Sorry, I'm ranting a bit.
They're getting clever with it.
Yeah, I was just going to say Orlando's statute is probably pretty legal because it doesn't regulate the air. It regulates the landing and takeoff site.
Okay, so they've gone around the right way of doing that. I believe, didn't they have pre-existing ordinance for model aircraft?
Yes.
So what's the difference, I wonder?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about what Austin is going through right now. And Jonathan, I have to take exception to you when you say that they'll go outside the city limits, because they won't. Austin is a good example because, one, we're the live music capital of the world, right? We've got some of the biggest fests around, South by Southwest, ACL Fest. We just got done with the Trail of Lights, which there was a drone violation every night at the Trail of Lights because somebody wanted to get a picture of the beautiful Trail of Lights there on the river, in Austin. And it was, as you were speaking, John, when I came in, when you started talking about reinforcing the reckless and careless use of an aircraft, that's what Austin is looking at. And to what Loretta's point is that they've controlled where you can take off and where you can land. They've also passed an ordinance and it's been a long-standing ordinance that there are no RC aircraft allowed in the parks, much like the state parks and the national parks are right now. So they emulated that, and that was done a long time ago. And it was mainly because we have so many people in the park that, there was a very good likelihood that somebody was going to get hurt by an RC airplane. So we've gotten a step further, and there are guys out there that are flying their copters in the park, and the Austin Police Department has to enforce the code that's out there. One of the things that we did this weekend is we met with the Austin Drone Users Group, and John Buell, my business partner, went with me. He was in uniform, and it was okayed by his brass. And we went out there and we talked to them about what they should try to do as, and this is going to sound real familiar to you, Gary, to self-regulate themselves as a community, which is the very thing that we promoted back in 2005, 2006 with RCAPA, our CAPA. And as a group, those people, 200 or so of them, as we spoke, agreed that something needs to be done because there are people out there, we call them code ID 10Ts, out there flying these aircraft amongst children, crowds, animal, dogs. So they are actually joining in and helping to self-regulate themselves, or have pledged to at this point, and will also do the same thing for anyone that they see that is operating outside the parameters, for example, in a park. So, yeah, we're trying to avoid city passing an ordinance. We're doing our best to try to keep that from happening, just like we did with our CAPA, with the feds. So, you know, there's a lot to be said for the state laws that are out there. John, we've got the same one with 912 and 1486 there in Texas that covers both privacy and operation. There's stuff on the books right now that can be covered from the state level. Just people need to be educated and recognize that it's out there and you can be cited, you know, and most of the guys that are out there right now don't cite anybody. They just try to, as an ASI would do, educate you and advise you. So
can I sort of, I'm going to throw perhaps a controversial line in. So your new man says he's going to get rid of 75% of regulations over there. A lot of people in the unmanned community are taking that to mean everything's going to fall away and they're going to be able to do whatever they want. I'm beginning to see that sort of posted, not quite everywhere, but that's sort of a feeling I'm getting now. He can't get rid of the stuff that's been around for years to protect people from cameras, you know, standard day-to-day provisions. Forget unmanned aircraft. There's already pre-existing laws. Is that a great hope for the unmanned community in the US? Let's get rid of 75% of rules, or is it a red herring?
On the surface, I think it's a red herring. I don't think they'll drill down as far as, you know, you need to keep your drone in line of sight. I don't think they'll drill down to that point. They may hit some very high level stuff and say mission accomplished, but I don't think it'll drill down to us.
And I suppose that leads, and I'm pulling away from Orlando a little bit, but of course also your new government has frozen lots of spending and hires and things like that, and that's going to delay a lot of stuff. How would that work? Oh, I was going to ask Loretta, and she fell away because she's ex-FAA, and she just, look, you see, she just ran away. She knew I was going to ask her that. But how might that affect the rulemaking process? Everyone's waiting for flight over people, aren't they? That's what we're all waiting for now. How's that going to affect that, do you think?
Jonathan, you can probably speak to this better than me, but I mean, the law is already passed, and the FAA interprets the law by policy. So
what does that mean, Gene?
It's going to be a policy statement from the FAA, don't you think, John?
Well, okay, so over people operations said that it's primarily a waiver at the moment under 107, and so at some point they're wanting to come out with a regulation that will replace that. So all these waivable provisions are going to at some point become regulations. So the first one, well, that people are thinking maybe will come out will be the over people operations. Followed up past that will be like night and extended beyond visual line of sight, one of those two. The NPRM for over people operations, we don't know exactly what's in it, but it was at the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs. I think it was as of last month is where it got put over there. And then since Trump came into office, I believe there's going to be a freeze, and it's going to take a while to get out. Additionally, Huerta, I think he's leaving, and Anthony Fox, DOT's leaving. So if OIRA kicks that back, right? Isn't he?
Huerta's not leaving. He has
Okay,
until 2018.
Okay, I misunderstood, but Fox is leaving. So if OIRA kicks it back, right, and then FAA, so Huerta gets to sign off, but then you have a potential for whoever is the next DOT head is going to potentially maybe cause some issues there if it's kicked back. If it's not, then it gets published in the Federal Register as a notice of proposed rulemaking. We get to comment on it like we did with the Part 107 NPRM back in, was it February, right? My numbers are all a little fuzzy right now, a while back. And so then the FAA is going to digest that information, and it goes through the same exact process again. And on average, it's about 1.5 to 2 years from NPRM being published in the Federal Register to it actually going into effect. So you're not going to get any type of over people operations under any set of federal aviation regulations, anytime in the near probably 2 years at least.
Now, over people, I think I was a little bit wrong saying over people. What is the one we're waiting for now? It's is it over people, or is it something else? It is that one, is it? So over people. Now that leads to another thing I've been picking up this week is that there have been some flights over people. On Saturday, there were flights over quite a lot of people in quite a few places, and the legality of that has been called into question over the marches that happened on the weekend, and people are dobbing them in. What do we feel about that? And were those flights definitely illegal? Is there enough proof to actually report somebody? Anyone got any ideas?
I think it's great for business.
Spoken like a lawyer.
Okay. I'm going to say something about safety now. Okay, anyway, so.
No, I keep losing my internet connection because we have a windstorm. So if I get lost, I try to get back. But there's a couple of things that I find interesting. One is you can't really do very much with a video anyway, because you can't really tell whether or not someone is too low, directly over people, et cetera, et cetera. If you have witnesses, then you might be able to build a case. But I do find it interesting that a lot of the people complaining were people who, up until August, were flying commercially illegally. So they may not think that commercially illegally was a safety violation, but I can tell you from the FAA's perspective, if you're not approved by the FAA, then your operation is not only illegal, but unsafe. So it is ironic to me that all of a sudden we have this groundswell of opposition. Two, I feel that drones, especially these small, lightweight drones, are the future of news gathering. And to come out so strongly and invoking the FAA and being in the forefront of getting the FAA to bash these people, other than wanting to give Jonathan business, which I do because he's a nice man and a terrific attorney, I think it's a really ironic position for the drone community to be in. And I totally agree that if people are operating really recklessly or in an unsafe manner, but if a drone is perhaps over a crowd of people, it may not per se be this incredibly reckless act. So I am bemused, I guess, by some of the comments from people. I also don't think the FAA is actually going to do anything. For one thing, their policy is education first. So unless somebody actually crashed the drone, I don't see them doing something unless it was in Class B or something that they consider particularly outrageous.
Do you think the FAA's done a good enough job of telling the world that it's education first, and they're not really the big bad people that they are willing to listen? Do you think they've done a good enough job of communicating that?
Well, no, because then they take cases that make absolutely no sense, like Skypan for $1.9 million, or they prosecute people for being on the fringes of Class B, or no. So they still have a lot of power and make decisions that don't make any sense from a regulatory or safety perspective. But I think that the word has pretty much gotten out that it's education first, except when it's not.
So how does the decision making process work? You were that prosecuting person. Does it come from like HQ in Washington, or is it started? Does a local office have a meeting and decide we think this case is particularly bad, let's go after this one? How does it happen?
It starts in the field with an aviation safety inspector who gathers the evidence and puts together a case, and then it goes to an attorney in the field. But all the field attorneys now report to headquarters, and there's been this big push to standardize. So everything ultimately gets coordinated in headquarters. And given the change in administration, and right now I understand the chief counsel is still there, even though he's a political appointee. I guess he's been told to stay for a little bit longer. There's just a lot of unknowns. So people take strong positions when there's a lot of unknowns.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's a very fair and valid point. So Skypan settling for what, 10 cents on the dollar or whatever it was. What do we feel about that one?
And coincidentally, he was the photographer for a lot of buildings that are owned by our new president. I mean, I thought the case was outrageous to start with. So then settling for 10 cents on the dollar to me was probably Skypan just wanting to get out from under paying incredible attorney fees and settle, because I think they probably had a really good case to challenge the FAA.
I don't quite understand this settling and all this business. Your new man settled with his fantastic educational establishment. How does it work? How can you get out of, if you've committed a crime, how do you get out of or perceived crime? I don't understand how it works. Jonathan, just talk very slowly and explain how I can get out of doing something bad by paying money.
Well, it's not like you're getting out of it. The better way to just understand it, it's like judicial, efficiency, that there are only so many attorneys and judges, and they can only hear these cases so fast. And so like 95% of all cases settle. So it's a very, very high rate. That's what happens. It's just for some reason, everyone, the big ones make the news that everyone's like, oh my gosh. And it's like, dude, that's what everyone does. It's like 95% of the time they settle. And so there's an agreement there. So the FAA is trying to find, well, we don't want to take this all to trial. We don't want to have to depot all these people or have to get all these documents and waste how many hours trying to go after you. We're willing to just settle for X number of dollars and fine. And so it's a cost benefit analysis at that point. And then they also have to maybe make the argument, well, with Skypan, with his attorney, it's going to get a little expensive, and then just kind of running those numbers, you're like, well, if they were to go to trial, it's, let's say it'd be like $300,000. So you just make that argument, hey, Skypan, going to trial is going to cost you more. We'll do it for $200,000. Let's get this all done. We don't have to do the work. You don't have to pay that extra money. And so that's how it happens. There might be other things in that settlement agreement. I know that it's if he acts up within, was it a year, he has to pay an extra $150,000 fine. then there was on top of that, those are things to assure compliance. That's generally part of a settle agreement, at least from an enforcement side. Sometimes you can negotiate that. So it's how it normally
But
happens.
look,
So-
would you spend $2 million to make $55 million?
Well,
Why would you,
that brings up interesting discussion there regarding whether I do something purely based upon money or would I not based upon principle. But if I were not a principled person, I would go after the money. If I were a principled person, which I am, I would not go after the money because it's wrong, regardless of I'd make more money. It's the law, so I'll follow it.
Okay, the other thing
Okay,
with this particular case is the FAA would have had to convince a U.S. attorney that this case was worth $1.9 million. And I don't see too many U.S. attorneys saying, oh yeah, this was really so unsafe that we're going to go with a $1.9 million fine.
So Skypan then had to have the chutzpah, without trying to not say a rude word, was what I was going to say, to push forward and enough money to pay the attorney to get to that point. But perhaps they didn't have the money to get to that point of go on, truth or dare. Go on, Mr. Attorney, is it or isn't it? So $200,000 was probably a lot cheaper than reaching that decision point. Or am I reading that wrong?
It could have been. I mean, based upon what I know, it would have been expensive to go to trial and to fight it up too. Because especially if they get you at something, because now you're going to be in the district court, and if you're going to fight it up to a circuit court at an appellate level, that's going to get very expensive. That's going to take a while. Maybe in their eyes, it's just better to just quickly dump it for the $200K and then run. Just move on with life.
So then, to be the further devil's advocate, then could the FAA then cherry pick things that are a little bit like that for $200,000 a time? Because a company of size X is never going to be able to afford to hit all those points. I mean, could they target companies like that?
Yeah, but so that wasn't wise when they did that. I mean, it was great for getting scaring everybody. But when you end up going after a person for $1.9 million, then it's actually cheaper to hire an attorney to fight it, right? So then what I'm noticing with the FAA's new strategy is that they are picking lower dollar amounts to where to pay an attorney to get involved to really fight it out is actually going to be more expensive than just paying the fine. So they're trying to keep whatever this dollar amount is to have an attorney fight it out, they just stay underneath it with the fines. And I think that's their new strategy right now.
And so you're saying that as if there's lots of small fines being meted out all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton of them,
Shaking
but they're going out. They're smaller numbers.
Okay, that's a very interesting. Can you put a number on that then? What's the number where it's not worth getting an attorney involved?
That's an interesting discussion there. But if you go to my website and look up the analysis I did on the 23 enforcement actions, and I listed out the overall prices. I also listed out before an attorney was involved and after, and how they settled it down. And so actually, pretty much every time the attorney was involved, there was always a lower amount. I don't know how much that benefit they save by having an attorney involved, but a lot of the fines are around $1,100 to $2,200. Keep in mind though, the penalties actually just went up, and it's $1,414 now. So if Skypan were to do this all over again, they would actually have a 28% increase on that $1.9 million fine. So it'd actually be higher. So,
and that
But
post
if they made $55 million in process,
I say again.
If they made $55 million,
yeah, in the process, that $2 million is nothing. I mean, it's
So
like the movie, and
Are you
you
suggesting
plan
that's
for
what they
one.
sorry, Gene. Are you suggesting, Gene, that that's what Skypan had made before the $2 million roughly fine.
There were some numbers bandied about that it was in the multiple millions of dollars. 55 was a number that came across my line, so
Okay,
that's significant.
it is. But now,
But they were operating for years before the FAA all of a sudden dreamed up its interpretation of the rules. So how fair was that?
are you allowed to say? Are you, as a former FAA employee, are you allowed to say "dreamed up," Loretta?
Of course I'm allowed to. At least up until now, I've had some freedom of speech.
There you go. The first, I don't get that free. That's another conversation for another time. I don't get that over there. But Gene, you were speaking previously. I believe a little bird told me that you've had the first one bird chatted in one ear and told me that you've got your night waiver, which is great. And then another bird told me that you've made use of that night waiver using FLIR equipment, and you've had a bit of a success.
Yeah, you are correct, sir. And I will say that the person that helped me get that waiver, his initials are John Ruprecht. Oh wait, I said that wrong.
Yeah, you did, because we don't trust him. He's actually in our blacklist. I've got another list here. Whoever he is.
Yeah, thank you very much. And yes, we are credited with a save using a FLIR equipped device.
Are you able to say?
So that's why you didn't answer my phone call last night.
That's the trouble. You hire Rupert, he bothers you all night. What are you at liberty to tell us what you managed to achieve with the FLIR camera?
Yeah, just in general terms, we had a missing and endangered adult. This individual wanted to go out and do harm to himself, and he ran out into the woods with the ability to do so. And in very short order, we were dispatched, and using the FLIR, he was very easy to find. I got to tell you, even in the woods, after we got finished looking at the deer and the other things that we couldn't identify, the person that was out there was very easy to identify. And he got up and tried to run away from the drone, and we essentially herded him into safe hands.
And what was the aircraft you were flying with the FLIR?
That would be the DJI Inspire 1 with the XT FLIR. And
then, I don't know how much you could say, but were you quite far away? I mean, how far did you have to fly in the woods, or did you happen to be close by? Is what I'm trying to say.
Well, as luck would have it, we were driving by when the call came out, so we got to respond fairly quickly. The wooded area that we were in was, I don't know, a couple of 100 acres. It was the pitch of night, and it would have been real difficult to go out there and find him. Let's put it that way. And then, we literally found him in 2 flights.
And then when you found him, how I don't know how the Inspire system worked. How did you geolocate the chap then, or did you just put the aircraft over the top and look down?
Well, actually, that's what we did. We had a mobile command unit out there, and I had the shift sergeant in there with me. We were watching the big screen, and we piped the video in, and we had the map reference on there, and we knew the area pretty well. And as we flew over and we picked up the guy on the second flight, we had our landmarks pretty well lined out. This is all a part of mission technique and what you do to get ready and prepare for it. But we pretty well knew the area and the layout of the area without even having to have geo-referencing information in front of us. And it was pretty easy. When we found the guy, all we had to do was just go up, and the lights on the Inspire, which, by the way, Jonathan, I have a strobe that I'll tell you about, that we used on it for an anti-collision light. And it was very easy to see. So
okay, so could you then? I'm sorry, I'm not getting this. You climbed up, and the anti-coal was on. So then the units on the ground knew that it was underneath that flashing light in the sky.
Yes, it was
So
a very easy beacon. But the individual took
Okay.
off running. Which, in the woods is at night is a really difficult thing to do
Yes.
because we
yes.
watched him bounce a couple of trees. And
So,
as he was trying to get away from the drone, pretty much, we could hurt him. We just kind of herded him where we needed him to go.
And then it gets hotter as he's running away, and he just gets brighter, and it just gets easier. You're like, oh, this is getting really easy here. He's glowing.
but that must be a point of contention, though. Is you've got your mobile command unit, you've got all the fancy stuff in the world. It's all great. It's all working well, all the technology. But how you actually communicate to the policeman or whichever unit or fireman that's chasing after him, that's another link in the chain that needs to be secure. Not secure from a technology point of view, but secure from it needs to work, and communicating positions and stuff. How
Absolutely.
do you how do you do that? What's your normal mode of operation then, or have you just invented it with this rescue?
No, actually, we have protocols set up. Luckily, we had TAC radios available to us, so we were using tactical frequencies to direct the ground units. And most people don't monitor those on their scanner. So we had those, and of course I had the shift sergeant, the IC there, right there sitting in the pilot's console with me. So he communicated to his people as he needed to, and quite frankly, it was Unit 1, stay still, don't move. He's coming to you.
It's interesting. Back in the UK, they had a FLIR capture in I can't even, it was 2007. The Merseyside police managed to find a chap that was holed up. Was it 2007, 2000? It was 2008. It was early 2008 because the law changed over New Year, 2007, 2008, and the Merseyside police hadn't got their ducks in the row and sorted it out with the CAA, so they had to throw out that prosecution because it wasn't a lawful arrest.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, that was the police, and they hadn't complied. But anyway, that's another story. So you had when you had a Mavic, the new Mavic, you were part of was it a missing person search or person search with the Mavic? Like day 2, you had the thing, and now you've had this. You're a very positive story for DJI.
Well, it's not that we have any allegiance one way or the other, because we use fixed wings as well. So it just so happens that was in the quiver at the time when it got pulled out.
Oh, that's a good analogy. Well, you are Mr. Wing at the end of the day, aren't you? And that's how you and I first got talking, was about flying wings. And Tom is the new Tom there. Young Tom is getting bored with the old people. He is new 3D printed Mr. Flying Wings, and he's going to make a much bigger difference than we all have. But anyway, so no, well done, Gene. I was very impressed to hear those birds told me the right information. So congratulations on that, and let's hope that there's kind of more happy endings to your work than unfortunately you normally deal with. Oh, actually, that actually leads me on to the next thing I was going to ask you. I noticed in Wales this week a missing person. They suspect he's a 19-year-old lad. They suspected he was in a river, and they've also sent out an Inspire with a FLIR camera. And I was wondering, would that actually work in your experience? Would it be easier to find a body? No, okay. So, yeah.
No, if he's in the river, how long? I mean, I don't mean to be talking case details here, but I mean, if he's been in there for a while, he's going to be the same temperature as water.
Yeah. Yeah, and that actually, one of the problems they have with FLIR here with anti-poaching is the rocks stay hot. They probably do in Texas as well. Overnight they stay hot, and there's far too many false positives at night when they're flying. Too many bright things everywhere, and so FLIR hasn't been all that successful. Go on to it. Did you have a? Are there ways? Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure those ways to fix it are actually allowed outside of America because of similar ITAR regulations.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. But
We'll
it's
come
true.
to America.
Yeah.
We're throwing the doors
Yeah,
open.
why are you over there anyway? Come over here. It's better. We're here. We got the Mavic.
We're immigrants.
I can't answer that politely, Jonathan. I can't answer that politely. Where was I going to go with that? Oh, I know where it's going to go. I asked a question on Quora, this question asking thing, and it speaks a little bit against your new regime. Is it possible to make a drone out of completely American parts?
Yes.
Oh, there we are. Oh, Gene has the answer. So where will I get the speed? Where will I get the speed controllers and motors from then?
Does Castle still make theirs stateside?
No. No. What about the batteries?
They used to.
They
They used to claim all made in USA.
No, I believe that one was debunked. So what about batteries? You see where I'm going with this? So then, okay, so now you've made it, and it's all made in America. What about exporting it to the rest of the world? Because I know you've got quite a big market over there, but is it big enough to support a company of, say, DJI's size? I know I'm being very controversial. Obviously, you want to bring everything back to America and manufacturing and all that, but I think in this industry it's a bit of a problem. Have I closed down the Americans now, being too controversial?
No,
Yes.
I think that what I've heard is they're going to attack it from the component level.
Really, right down to speed controllers, motors, and flight controllers, and
No, chips.
the chip level. Wow, that brings big silence. How what chips are made? Will your washing machine still work?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know. We're going to have to see how the new man reconciles that when you consider that many of the people that are making chips are now decidedly Eastern in demographic.
Yeah, when I watched the inauguration and things were said, I thought, well, all right, let's just apply a 35% tax on something coming inbound. And if I was that inbound manufacturer, I'd quite happily take that, because if I was to try and do it there, it would be impossible or would cost an absolute fortune. Dear old Parrot, superb innovators, have suffered at the hands of having French wages to pay and American wages to pay. DJI and Chinese manufacturers just don't have those overheads. And even with 35% put on top, I think they're still going to make money, and it's going to be pretty impossible to compete against them. You're a manufacturer, Gene. You're a manufacturer of flying wings.
You are correct, sir.
You know, I don't know. And I think the long-range platforms that you're using now are made in China, aren't they?
You are correct, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've been too controversial as we're coming up to the top of the hour. And the end of this, I've closed everybody down. Did anybody else have anything else they've seen this week that they'd like to talk about?
Is there any way to mount one of the FLIR cameras to the bottom of the disco?
Yeah, I should think you could. I should think. How big are those flares?
Or maybe we should talk later.
Well, but why would you mount it on a disco when you can mount it on one of Gene's? But you can mount it on one of Gene's wings.
I can still make them right here in the little shop of horrors. I've still got the ability to make them right here.
And then
Okay.
And what could actually happen is Tom could design the file to make the FLIR carrying flying wing with a far more efficient aerofoil and stuff than could be hot wired out of foam, and then there's the conflict there. So will there be a 35% tax on Tom's design file because it's coming from England, or how would that work? How would that work on an IP that can arrive via email?
Not right away, and that's one of the things that's another whole subject, because the internet commerce has been looked at as a cash cow for a long time by the government. So let's don't give them any ideas. Thank you very much.
That's okay. They don't listen. It's fine. We've not used any of the trigger words. We're okay. Unless one of the new trigger words is root prick, and I think if it isn't, we should make it one of the new trigger words. No, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Trying to have trade wars in the internet age. It's an interesting concept, and you better make sure that your home team advantage is enough. I see that he wants the steel for the pipeline that to be made in. Anyway, let's not go there. Let's not go there. So I'll say it again. Any news that anyone else saw that they want to speak through before we go?
I saw that the NIJ came out with their document on recommendations for insertion of drones into the national airspace. I just got my little grubbies on that thing just about an hour ago. It's 102 pages, and I'm really interested to see what they recommend. And
the NIJ are, for those that don't know?
That would be the National Institute of Justice. The Justice League, you know, with all the Justice League warriors.
One of the interesting things is people are calling for universal sort of new air traffic rules for drones, and the people that seem to be calling for those are the people that stand to make a great deal of money out of controlling that system. So is the community aware of that? Are they aware that people are about to pull the rug from underneath them with, if they think this drone registration's been bad, wait till the next one? Any thoughts on that?
Well, we got to freeze on regulations, dude. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. But Australia, the Australian body for UAS were talking about that today, and I think that's a big. Personally, I think that's a worry. I think it's a worry that sort of internet-enabled people are suggesting IP addresses for each aircraft and all that sort of a thing. And I don't think the community at large is keeping an eye on it. Am I just being too paranoid?
I don't think so.
Okay, Jonathan, have you got any thoughts on that? Nope.
Jonathan, wake up. Jonathan, wake up.
Not really at the moment.
This being well, what would make you have thoughts? What about training and stuff like that over there, and information that's going out for the 107 world? Is that still going out well over there?
There are more people that are jumping into the 107 game every day.
Yeah, and are they shoving out accurate information? Is it good training stuff, or is it just the shiniest website to take the fastest dollar?
I know what you're referring to now. Well, yeah. Yeah, well, there's some quality control here and there that's needed. That's probably the best way to describe that. If you are a 107 operator, don't talk about the law. Just do us all a favor. That's probably the best way to put that.
What do you mean? What do you mean
before you say anything? Because most of them think they know the law by memory, and those of us who are attorneys, we read the rules every time before we speak about what they say, as opposed to all these people who have their 107 and never look at the rules. It's very frustrating.
So,
right.
Should there be a post then, Jonathan, on your website, Rubric Law, of the top 10 misconceptions or something like that? Because I can't believe we're still seeing people saying, no, but I'm giving them the footage for free. It's a hobby because it's the intention, isn't it? For a lot of flights, I believe it's the intention of the flight, not You know, so if you if the person, the end user, is kind of a commercial use, and that's why you're flying, that wasn't the intention, even if you give it to them for free. Here's one misconception that I'm getting wrong. So come on, lawyers, let's have the top 10 misconceptions on a post, please.
The
Hasn't
only
that been
problem
done?
with that is, well, I mean, the only problem is like why when I thought about doing stuff like that, but then you end up writing articles to try to educate the people who think they know more than you, and they'll never pay you, so you end up wasting a lot of time. And I'm like, okay, you know, that's what ends up happening. Especially they get into the Facebook groups, they become a Facebook attorney, and then they all like fight amongst each other or cite stuff. And I've never heard such craziness. And there's one particular person. Yeah, I've just seen some stuff. There was actually one thing that I saw 2 weeks ago. I was really kind of troubled by it. I was like, wow, this is not just wrong information. It was like negligently wrong information, as to tell people information that if they were to rely on it could potentially get them in trouble with the FAA, such as, you know, people going back to citing the Parker case or Cosby. Look, if you're citing Cosby and you've never read Cosby, don't ever talk about Cosby. Furthermore, like, Cosby is not the best thing to be citing. That is an old case. There are newer things you can cite. There's a newer United States Supreme Court case. There's actually a couple of them. And then there are actual federal statutes on point. So when you cite Cosby, it's like a giant like indication to me, like you've heard it somewhere in Facebook, and somebody wrote an article on it, and then you read somebody's drone journal, and then you played like the telephone game a few times with it, and then it comes out the other side this mess, and it's like, wow. And so I was actually kind of shocked that I'm like, should I write an article responding to this, because it was really wrong about the FAA's regulations. They can't make regulations. It was just legally wrong, factually. And if you were to rely on it, you could get in trouble with the FAA and get a prosecution. With your piece of paper with your name at the top of it, and the FAA mailing it to you. And I was just like, wow, this is bad.
And a lot of people say what the FAA will or won't do, and it's like they've never worked at the FAA. They have no idea what the FAA does or doesn't do. And it really is very disturbing. And a lot of it is on Facebook, as Jonathan said. And a lot of people, even when you tell them they're wrong, they think it's right. They also think it has to make sense. They think if it's logical, it's therefore legal. They don't understand that the law doesn't have to be logical. So it's, a lot of...
Like the whole authorization thing, you know, like everyone's belly aching about the authorization thing. And it's like, look, I think there's some arguments to why the FAA did what they did, but I don't think anyone thinks that out. So like they go, oh, you're killing the drone industry. And it's like, you know, that they could have some valid points on their side as to why they're not doing that. They could have tweaked a few things to do it better. But it's very like they don't know what's going on, so they just it's like Facebook has become the place. It's like for
Fake
unemployed droners that want to complain, because everybody that I know that makes money is not on Facebook. I start using that as an indicator, going like, you're very active on Facebook, you must not have a lot of work, because everybody I know that is working is not on Facebook. And there's a direct proportionality there, like, oh, you put a bunch of stuff out. Yeah. So it's like this like support group. They all complain. Like, complaining doesn't do anything. Like, FAA doesn't read your Facebook posts.
Just back up a second with what exactly meant by the authorization thing, for perhaps people that are watching that don't know what you meant by that.
Okay, so the regulations say that in order to operate in Bravo, Charlie, Delta, or Echo at the surface airspace, you must have an authorization from air traffic control. The FAA from DC, up in DC, the Air Traffic Organization Office put out a joint order telling the ATC to send everybody to the portal to not verbally authorize them on the phone. And that's where everyone gets really upset, because they're having to go onto the portal and submit, and some of them don't really know what they're doing, so they're getting rejected. And instead of actually putting effort into figuring out why they got rejected and doing a little bit of homework, they would rather jump on Facebook a bellyache for like 20 hours. And it's like, okay.
And I've seen some astounding complaints with that, really. People are saying, I want to operate for like an hour, 50 meters from the end of the runway at the largest airport in city XYZ, and for some ridiculous reason, the FAA won't let me do it. I've seen some quite extraordinary requests that people have bemused why they haven't been permitted, you know, why their Phantom 3 professional can't hold up a major airport's operation for 5 hours. You know, people's expectations. And guess what? You know, the real estate jobs might be near the airport. So perhaps really a camera on a stick is the way to do those jobs rather than, you know, trying to fly the Phantom. I'm a little bit bewildered why people believe they have a right to fly next to an international airport. But anyway, again, I'm being quite
okay. You could. I mean, it just depends on your strategy. There's hazards, there's mitigations, and if you present it in the right way, you could potentially get situations like that. So, I mean, to date, we have out of the Bravos that have been granted, there's been quite a few Bravos that have been granted. It's like, I don't remember off the top of my head. They've already been granted Charlies, Deltas. There's even large areas Charlies. And so these things are getting done, but not by people that are just complaining about it. So why don't you just go? I mean, it at the end of the day, just go study, like figure it out, as opposed to complaining about it, because that doesn't actually do anything.
There's a rich vein of venom of can't say doesn't matter. You're not impressed, are you?
Yeah. And, hey Gary, but before you I know we're 12 minutes past our time.
Yeah.
But Tom, I wanted to say that I watched your build video last night. Cracking good job. I loved it. It's brilliant. I actually have my Prusa i3 right over here, and I think I'm going to download your STL and try it. I've got some ideas for you that I think you could section that wing off and get rid of the crisscross ribs. But well done, sir. I thought that was very good. Sorry I missed out on the stuff in the beginning, but I wanted to say well done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, any feedback will be appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you've got a group of fans here. We may even invent a song or something like that, some sort of cheer. It's great stuff, and it's great you put it out there. And I look forward to flying your aircraft here. I've got a friend of mine's printing it for me, Gene. As I said earlier, hopefully he's staying up all night and making sure it gets done. Which I very much doubt. But it's a great idea, and I was utterly wrong about 3D printed aircraft. There's no doubt about that at all. So yeah, we're well over time now. We're 13 minutes over time. We've allowed Jonathan to have a rant. Loretta's been the voice of moderation, and Gene has done well by rescuing people. So thanks everybody. Thanks everybody that's watching, that's taken the time to email and stuff. I really appreciate that. Again, a shout out to the guys at Bath. I don't really know why I'm shouting out to you, but thanks very much to you and Jamie there. Subscribe, do whatever, all those things you're supposed to say. It remains for me to say thank you very much to everybody for joining us. Hopefully you'll join us again sometime near in the future, and we'll do this all again at 2100 GMT on a Tuesday. So cheerio, everyone.
Adios, guys. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Yeah.